Welcome everybody to today's live. I have a very, very special guest. My guest today is Eric Edmeades, and Eric will be talking today about 8 essential physical needs of humans. And I would like to introduce a little bit Eric. He is an internationally recognized business speaker, film producer, a serial entrepreneur. Eric's varied business background, including mobile computing, medical simulation, augmented reality gaming, 3D camera engineering, and Hollywood special effects. Eric is also a founder of WildFit and the creator of both Inception marketing and Business Freedom, a business ownership methodology that empowers you to own a business that doesn't own you. So I'd like to welcome my very, very special guest, Eric. Hello, Eric.
Hello. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, fantastic. So I have an honor to meet you last year in Estonia. You have been speaking about holistic health on a big stage, and I have been really impressed by your message for holistic health that relates with breath, movement, diet, and I think you created a beautiful concept, WildFit, that I follow since many months now, and I must say that I'm really impressed how you developed that work. And today I would like you to start maybe with a little bit of your background, how that happens that you become holistic health expert coming from that business background, and then we go into the topic of 8 elements of human needs.
Well, I'll start off by saying expert is a very big word. I don't really hold myself to be out as any particular expert. I maybe specialist, maybe curious, maybe somebody who spent a lot of time studying it, but expert's a very big word. But the story for me is really simple. I was really sick as a kid and even into my early 20s. And, I'd done all the traditional things. I'd gone to see doctors and specialists and, had prescriptions and pills and needles and all the stuff that was supposed to cure me. And unfortunately, I didn't really get those results. I really, frankly, didn't get any better. Sometimes the pain would go away for a little while, but ultimately the problem was still there. And some friends of mine sat me down one day and said, well, maybe, you need to think about your relationship with food. And I thought that was an insane idea because I was okay. I mean, I wasn't like fat or anything. I wasn't eating junk food all the time and that kind of stuff. I thought, well, I'm fairly healthy in the way that I'm eating, I think, and whoa, was I wrong? Because you see, like fairly healthy in today's culture is not healthy. And so 30 days later, had made such radical improvements to my quality of life, like pain being away, more energy and all that kind of stuff, lost a bunch of weight and all my symptoms went away. And that led me to have a conversation with one of my doctors at the time where I asked, how much time he'd spent studying nutrition. And it was an awkward question to ask, because the doctor's a specialist and they've got their stethoscope and the robe and the degrees on the wall and all, and I'm just some kid. But I just asked, like, how long did you go to medical school? It was like 6 years. And then I said, and how much that time was on food? None. And I couldn't relate to that thinking. In fact, I went and talked to my uncle, who was a fairly well-renowned like a well-accepted orthopedic surgeon. He was very prominent in his space. And I asked him the same question. He'd, of course, gone to medical school for like 10 years. And then I asked him, how much time did you spend studying food? And no kidding, he did this. He went, huh? Like, when a dog gets confused, it's because the question had never occurred to him before. And that's what started me on this journey. So as much as I've been a serial entrepreneur and I've been involved in film production and mobile computing and logistics management and traditional business things, my deepest curiosity for the last 30 years has been about 2 things. And that has been nutritional anthropology. What really should we be eating? And then even more important to that is the psychology that goes behind our food decisions, and of course the way we're marketed at, and how do we change behavior. That's really what led to WildFit.
Beautiful, great story. So you just cure yourself, and through the journey you discover like how to serve others and how to help others to cure themselves, basically. Beautiful. Yeah. So what are the 8 essential physical needs for humans? How would you
let's back up. If we back up just a minute and think about why we think this way. If you and I were, where are you right now?
I'm right now in Greece, in Mytilene Island, in my home.
Excellent. Nice place to be during lockdown. I'm in the Caribbean. I'm with you. But let's imagine that we were, let's say that we were in, Madrid, and we wanted to drive to Tallinn again. Okay. So that's quite a long drive, right? So what would we do? We would go and we would make sure that the car had all of its needs met. Right? We would make sure that it had enough gas, that it had good oil, that the brake fluid and the steering fluid, that the antifreeze, that the windshield washer, that the tires had the right pressure. We would go through the car and make sure that the car was ready for the journey. And we would not wait till the car got sick to fix the problems. We wouldn't start driving, go, oh, look, we're out of windshield washer fluid. Now we have to go deal with it. We would deal with that stuff in advance. And unfortunately, the way most people look at health is the other way. We'll just fix it when it gets broken. We food is medicine. Food is not medicine. Food is food. Yes, some food has medicinal properties, but it's not food that stops you from being sick. It's food that prevents you from getting sick in the first place. So we have to start from the prevention end. In another way of looking at it, a lot of doctors are incredibly well trained at helping people once they're already in trouble. For example, giving them mouth-to-mouth resuscitation when they're already drowning in the river. What I would rather do is teach them how to swim. So that's the basis under which we go after the 8 physical needs. And the 8 physical needs are what I'll do is I'll go through each one, and then in case you've got questions to go deeper into any one, we'll do that. So I'll go through the first one. These needs are what we've determined to be the core needs of the body. And if you satisfy these needs, then you experience optimal health, you recover from disease better, you recover from injury better, you're happier, life's generally better. So the first need, and they're also listed in order of urgency. They're all important, but they're listed in relative order of urgency. That is to say, how long can you live without them? So of course, the number one is for oxygen, air. And so this may seem like a pointless thing to tell people because they go, well, I'm breathing. You don't need to remind me to breathe, but it's not as simple as that. We have to take a look at what we're breathing. Are we getting enough fresh air? I'm lucky enough to live in a place where the air that blows in off the ocean, the last time it passed over a landmass was Africa. So it's gone over the Atlantic. It's about as clean as air gets. It's important for us to get some really good, clean air in our lives. And then the second thing is we have to think about how we breathe because we have different methods of breathing and they communicate different things to our body. So for example, prey breathing, what I don't mean by praying, I mean prey animals breathe quite shallow because they don't want anybody to hear them because they don't want to get hunted. And so that shallow breathing is a great way to raise your stress levels and your cortisol. It's like, I'm going to breathe really shallow. And unfortunately, most people sit at their desks and breathe shallow most of the day, creating stress. What we need to do is to remember to breathe deeply. So for example, in WildFit, we have something we call the 5-5-5 breathing, where you breathe in for 5, hold for 5, breathe out for 5, hold at the bottom for 5, and do that 5 times. And you feel so different after that. And so it's a matter of making sure that you're breathing good stuff and you're breathing right.
Beautiful. Great. Yeah, I'm also into breath work a lot. I'm a breath work therapist myself, teaching biodynamic breath and trauma release. And I notice how breath is tremendously transformative for our life, not only just as a main essential need, but also can be used as a tool for trauma healing, for pain healing, for rejuvenation, for energizing the body. So it's such a tremendously important tool. Fantastic. I'm really happy you are mentioning breath because it's very close to also my view of holistic health.
I'm glad you're doing that work. It's it's the foundation. It's the one thing that immediately, if people took the time to do some deep breathing every day to fill their lungs entirely, their cortisol levels would go down, their stress would go down, they would lose weight more easily, they would feel happier, and it's the quickest, easiest thing to fix. But for some reason, because our unconscious mind takes care of the breathing for us, we just sort of go, oh, I'll just let my body do it. No.
Yeah.
And by the way, you probably know this, but for everybody's watching, one of the reasons we're in a little bit of trouble is that our old lifestyle forced us to do stuff that made us breathe. So, this is going to be a little scary for some of you that are younger, but there was a time when there wasn't an app that could deliver food to you. I know, it's a scary idea, but there was a time when we actually had to go get the food. And before that, there was a time when there wasn't even a store. So like we had to walk like 10, 15 miles a day to do our hunting and gathering and all that kind of stuff. So naturally, you ended up doing a lot of intensive breathing. Now we can sit around and play Xbox and watch Netflix and work at our desks, and our bodies aren't forced to breathe. So we have to bring our consciousness in, and we have to do the breathing ourselves. So that's number one. Number two, we really have to talk about water. We can live without air for only minutes, but water, a day or two without water and you're in pretty serious trouble. So we got to make sure we get water. And again, we come to this issue of, what are we drinking? Now, I want to be clear about something. Milk is not water. Orange juice is not water. Coffee is not water. Coca-Cola is not water. You know what's water? Water. Water is water. Now, I will give you that perhaps a very fresh squeezed juice or a very fresh squeezed smoothie has good water content in it. But the other ones, no, they act as diuretics. In fact, you drink coffee or Coke and you lose water every time you have one. So what we want to do is make sure we're drinking real water. And at the end of the day, we all have different sources of water. Some of us live in places where we trust the water coming out of our taps, and some of us don't. But what I want to suggest is we need to be hydrating, and we have to be drinking preemptively, not waiting until we're thirsty. We need to be drinking good amounts of water. I prefer to drink water before my meals and wait a little bit after my meals. I just find I feel better that way. And I prefer to go after water that is like as naturally occurring as possible, like natural glacial runoff mineral water. That's like rather than, for example, completely distilled or purified water. I would rather have natural mineral water. But the main thing is to make sure that we're preemptively staying hydrated.
Great. I also, first thing I arrived to Greece, I'm just moving into my new house in Mytilene Island, and I just arrived 10 days ago. And first thing I brought, I was driving by car, I brought a very good filter, and first thing I installed in the house was filter water, especially here in this climate. A very sunny Greek weather, and just drinking 3-4 liters of water. And this is interesting because I also emphasize a lot about water in my trainings to my students. And we kind of know, we know, and in the beginning of the training, there's always kind of emphasis, please drink 3-4 liters of water. And it's interesting that, yes, everybody knows. And when it comes to execution, somehow we keep on forgetting, or we start postponing until we're really thirsty, and just building that habit that sipping in constantly throughout the day, that 3, 4, 5 liters of water, and good quality water, that is really nourishing. And I noticed that, I just gained some sensitivity around water, and I can feel the difference of like tap water in the city when it's like chlorine, and it's like you can tell it's really nasty water versus, I was just driving through Bulgaria. I stopped in the mountain and just had a fresh water from Bulgarian mountains. Oh my God, I was like newly born. Amazing. It can just change our energy. And we think also sometimes, we can boost our energy with a coffee or strong tea. But I think water, if you want to boost our energy, just water can really constantly flush out the toxin and bring that vitality. So such important aspect. I'm really happy you mentioned that.
It really is. Two other points that come up from what you're saying. One reason that we sometimes forget is that our ancestors actually got quite a lot of water from the food they ate. Our ancestors would eat a lot of plants, and so they would get water from those plants. And also, our ancestors mostly ate incredibly fresh meat, and often raw, which also has water content compared to what we eat today. So our ancestors did not have pottery and like, water bottles and that kind of stuff. So they got a lot of their water in their like normal day-to-day activity. So because we don't get that so much anymore, we end up getting a little dehydrated. And the other thing is, you're absolutely right. Somebody can drink coffee or Coke and give themselves a boost of energy. They can also snort a line of cocaine. It's basically the same idea. It's an artificial form of stimulating energy in the body. But what's really important to remember is that energy, electricity, it flows through the body on the electrolytes of your body. Water, Like the water and minerals in your body are part of the information superhighway inside you. And so if you want more energy, you need to be better hydrated so you have better circuitry. So yeah, I'm with you 100%. We got to make sure water.
Cheers.
Cheers. The third physical need of the body, again, remember these are in order of importance. So of course, the first one to think about is air. Second one to think about is water. The third one, you might be immediately, people are always going, what about food? What about food? Okay, look, we're going to talk about food, but it's not so urgent. In fact, sleep is next, and sleep is more urgent than food. You just ask the CIA. If they want to get information from you, all they have to do is deny you good sleep for about 3 days, and you'll pretty much tell them anything they want to know. Because you see, your brain and your body really need you to sleep. When you sleep, your body is doing all kinds of important work inside your mind, integrating memories and working on stuff. It's really important that you have an opportunity to do that. But even maybe more importantly, your body does its cellular repair work at night. That's when your body goes and fixes things and builds things. So, you're asleep, you're not really moving. Your body's going in there going, all right, let's make some adjustments here. We'll build new cells. And a lot of that work is happening at night. So it's very, very important that we get really good quality sleep. I want to give some tips about that. A couple of ideas for you. Some people will find that it's easier to fall asleep if you have a nice warm bath, and it'll relax you before you go to sleep. The one challenge, though, is that we've now found that people sleep a lot better when their body temperature is allowed to drop. So the way I like it is I like to have a room that's really quite cold. So I'm breathing nice cold air. And I like to take a nice cold or cool shower or bath before I go to bed to bring my body temperature down. And I find I sleep so much more deeply. Also, dark. I mean, I am so into the dark that I carry eye masks with me when I travel, that I carry little stickers with me. So in fact, I'll give you a little travel hack. Not that anybody's doing a lot of travel these days, but when you are traveling again, the airline puts those little barcodes on your bag, right? Well, what you do when you get to the hotel room is you take those barcodes and stick them on all the little lights, so the little fire light, the little TV light, and stop all the light in the room, because you want your body to be producing really good qualities of melatonin to help you sleep. And also it's good for your immune response and all that stuff. So sleeping in as dark a place as possible is a really good idea at night. And then here's the last one for today. And that is turn off the devices. Like, turn them off on two levels. You don't want any of these electromagnetic frequencies in your bedroom at night. Turn off the Wi-Fi, turn off your phone. If you're wearing a iWatch or something to track your sleep, that's fine, but put it in airplane mode, right? Like, get that done. And then 2 hours before you go to bed, stop looking at screens. Stop looking at all the blue light that's coming in and turning off your melatonin production. So there are definitely some strategies we can do here to make sure that we get some sleep. And one more thing that I love to tell people is I don't use an alarm to wake up. I don't. First of all, I don't like, who wants to be alarmed first thing in the morning? I don't want to be alarmed. I want to wake up gently. And so I don't use alarms to wake up in the morning, because I use alarms to go to bed at night. What I mean by that is I have my watch telling me, hey, dude, it's 9:30. Get to bed. And you know what's crazy? When you go to bed at 9:30 and you're asleep by 10, you're never sleeping past 6. I mean, I'm often up at 5. And so I want to suggest that a lot of people put focus on what time they wake up. Robin Sharma says, join the 5 a.m. club. Great. Join the 5 a.m. club, but not if you don't join the 9 p.m. club the night before. So you've got to get some good sleep.
Sleep, yeah, very important. I was catching myself a few weeks ago being in Poland at the end of pandemic, kind of first wave of pandemic, just a little bit caught into staying late, watching some Netflix stuff and going to bed late, and then waking up quite late, not having very good sleep. And I must tell you that that was not the best time. And now coming back to Greece, I think for me also in terms of sleep, nature, somehow being in a place where nature is supportive and being in the nature in the evening is also helping me to kind of calm down my parasympathetic nervous system, to stay more kind of just wind down through the whole activity of the day. So I can start getting into that sleep mode and less activity. Meditation also is something that I like in terms of kind of calming mind down and bringing that, preparing for a sleep. It's kind of preparation, but it's super important. I feel so much better now having better sleep in Greece here at home than before. I see huge change. Definitely great. And I think it's a big problem nowadays. Whenever I talk to friends or people, many people struggle with sleep. Somehow the society goes so anxious. There's so much overthinking, so much being in the head that somehow just difficult to drop at night. There's so much activity still in the head that it really stops that rest. So great tips. I like what you suggesting and for the sleep.
Let me just add one more as well. I made an observation that when I was a child, my parents would pretty much have to use assault and battery to get me out of bed. Like get out of bed. And but there was one day of the year where it was different, wasn't there? There was one day of the year that it was different. And that day of the year was December 25th, where the night of December 24th, my mother would walk into the room and said, if you get out of bed before 6 a.m., I'm going to kick you. She didn't actually threaten to harm me, but you understand the point. Do not be up. That was the one morning where she's like, do not get up early. Every other morning, it was the other way around. So I thought about that. What's the difference? How does that work? And I recognized that the difference was anticipation. And so the more excited you become about your life, the better sleep you get, because your body's like, crap, we got stuff to do tomorrow. We better sleep. And then also the more energy you wake up with because you're excited. And so one of the great things that I recommend that people do before they go to bed at night is just take out a journal or even just meditate for a little bit and ask this question. What am I most excited about for tomorrow? What might be the most fun I'm going to have tomorrow? Who are some of the best people I'm going to see tomorrow? What are the best things about tomorrow? And what's crazy is that if you ask those questions and really answer them, like, oh, tomorrow I get to do this cool Facebook Live, with the Integral Body Institute, and I'm looking forward to that. And you do all this stuff. Then when you wake up in the morning, you're like, I'm ready. So that's a really important thing, is to get excited about your next day. Now, some people are like, yeah, but if I get so excited about the next day, I won't fall asleep. Well, if you manage to get yourself that excited, it's a quality problem, but I guarantee you it won't happen 2 nights in a row, because the fact is you need sleep, and your body will give you more sleep if you're excited than if you're stressed. If you're stressed, your body is like worrying all the time. Also, another hack about this. Worrying is usually just worrying that you're going to forget to worry. That's what worry usually is. Like, I've got this bill to pay. Oh, I have to worry about that. No, you don't. You're worrying about, will you remember to pay it? Or you're worrying about, will you pay it? So that's the other thing, is if you're lying in bed at night and you find yourself busy head worrying, then you take out a notepad and you write the thing down that you're worried about, and you'll be amazed that your mind will go, oh, okay, don't have to worry about that anymore. It's on the piece of paper. And then in the morning, you can pick up your worries fresh again. So these things really help people to sleep. Common questions that we get from people about this, like how long should you sleep? Long enough. At the end of the day, if you don't use an alarm to wake up, you will fall into the pattern. I always knew this, and I had lots of examples of it in my life, but I'll tell you what was fascinating. During lockdown, I got separated from my family. I'm living in this big house all by myself, no schedule really. And I found that I wasn't flying all over the place, so I really got to observe my sleep patterns. And I found out that for me, I have 2 different types of nights. I have like 6-hour nights, and that's perfect for me. And then occasionally I'll have an 8-hour night. And that's when I've really hit it hard at the gym, or I've been on stage all day. And then I have, like, let's call it a normal restorative night for me is about 6 hours, and a repair night is about 8 hours. But there's no one formula for everybody. And so I just want to say, everybody, really the best way to find out what your optimal sleep is to follow the steps we already gave you, and then set the alarm to go to bed, and don't set an alarm to wake up. And you'll start to find out what your body naturally does. One last thing is, a lot of people ask me about napping, and I tell them I'm a big, big fan of napping. I really like napping. And napping, some of the rules are different. For example, I like napping in the warmth, and I like napping in the bright light. And a nap is a very different thing. I've spent a lot of time with the Hadza Bushmen in East Africa over the last 10 years. And I can tell you, they're napping experts, these guys. They can nap anywhere at any time. And usually about 12, 1 o'clock at the middle of the day, when the sun is at its highest, we find a tree somewhere and we just crash out under that tree for half an hour. And I think napping has been a part of human history for a long time, and definitely a good idea.
Beautiful. Great. I like that. So we had oxygen, we had water, we had sleep. What else? What would you ask?
All right. So the next need of the body is for energy. Now, one might argue that we need energy earlier on, but energy is something we store. So it's not something we need to think about going to get very often. Most people, frankly, get too much energy. That's the truth of it. They eat too much sugar and way too many carbs. Most people, frankly, eat too much energy. So when we put energy on the list here, it's not really about saying you have to go get more energy. It's about making two changes. One change is the kind of energy. So we really should be relying more on fat as an energy source than on sugar. And most of us are taking in far too many carbohydrates. And so we're having big sugar ups and downs, which affects our moods. It causes hormonal problems. It's really difficult to live as a carb primary burner. And so we really want to move our life over and be bringing in more fat energy than sugar energy. Now, the other thing is that we want to also train the body to burn fat preferentially rather than sugar. And by the way, doesn't that sound useful if you want to lose weight as well? So we want to train the body to burn fat rather than to release sugar. There are a bunch of things we can do that, but very quickly for today, the two things you can do. One is reduce your carb intake dramatically. You've probably seen a lot of people talking about what they call keto or the low carb, high fat movement, or what we at WildFit call WildFit Spring. So you reduce your carbs pretty dramatically, and that's one way to start moving yourself to what we call being fat adapted. And then the other way to do it is to do very good aerobic exercise, not so anaerobic, you don't want to do anything that spikes your blood, your pulse up too high or makes it impossible for you to talk. You're breathing so hard. You want to do some exercise that gets you breathing, gets your pulse up, but you can still have a conversation, like good, serious walks, light runs, biking, swimming, that kind of stuff. And if you do those types of exercise while not eating so many carbs, your body will be, in a sense, forced to start metabolizing fat as a fuel source. And then I'll tell you, the whole world changes for you after that. Yeah, everything gets easier. Your moods get easier. Weight loss becomes easier, and so forth. So it's not so much that you need to go get. When we put energy on the list, it's not so much about you going to get energy. It's about switching energy sources and training the body to burn fat predominantly. So that's the fourth one on the list.
Great. I totally great point. I feel also that movement, what you said about burning energy, and I think a big part for getting energy is actually generating energy through the movement. It's sometimes there's this concept that if I move, I burn energy, I lose energy, but I think it's opposite. If we start moving, if we start really getting activities, walking, swimming, running, or even yoga, Tai Chi, Qigong, we start teaching our body to start generating more energy, and then of course having more serotonin, more feeling good hormones, and more happy state. So definitely such an important factor, moving energy. Great.
No question. And of course, that's a great segue, because the fifth physical need of the body is movement, right? Like that's the next need of the body is movement. And it's for the reasons that we've already talked about around stimulating your energy production, that kind of stuff. But there's a couple of other reasons. We look at movement in kind of two categories. There's the physical fitness category, and then there's the body function category. So if we first look at physical fitness, it's really important that we remain flexible, that we have good muscle density, and that we have good cardiovascular fitness. So these are important features of being physically fit. So what I mean by this is that one of the features of getting old or aging is to get less flexible. So what we want to do is make sure that we've got some exercises in our life that cause us to become more flexible, like you mentioned, yoga, Pilates, or just generally getting some good stretching in. But then we also want to make sure that we have good cardiovascular fitness. And we get that by doing aerobic exercises, like we mentioned, jogging, hiking, biking, the kind of stuff that gets your heart and lungs fit and healthy. But then we also really need to make sure we're doing some strength training. And that's not just, strength training is just not, it's not just for the muscle heads at the gym. It's for all of us. What we, in our normal, natural, evolved world, we were constantly using our muscles, digging and lifting and running and, all that stuff. And the problem is most of us live these sedentary lifestyles now. And so we've got real serious muscle atrophy. So we want to make sure that we've got some good, serious resistance training and build muscle density in our body. It changes your metabolism, makes life easier in every possible way. Plus, when you use your body, it gets stronger. Your bones get stronger, your muscles get stronger. So it's really important to do that. But now there's another reason. There's another reason for making sure you're moving, and that is that there are certain bodily functions that operate better with movement. So here's a good example. Digestion. Like digestion frankly, there's no pump. There's a little bit of a pump in the throat, you swallow the food, you push it down, and then after that, there's no pump. It's gravity that's bringing it down. That's taking your food down. And if you don't believe me, I challenge you to go eat a big bowl of spaghetti hanging upside down from the monkey bars. Good luck with that. It's not going to be so easy because your body's going to be like wanting to use gravity to push it down. And so when we move, when we go out walking, you go out for a nice walk after your meal, it helps the meal settle down. It's a really good thing. So our body requires movement to do some of its things. Here's another example. You have a heart, you have a diaphragm, and your heart and diaphragm are pumps. The heart is pumping blood around your system. Your diaphragm is pumping air in and out. That's because these things are both important and urgent. They're important, but they're also urgent. So they require a pump. Lymphatic fluid is important, but not really urgent. So there's no pump. There's no emergency lymphatic pump. Now, what does lymph do? It travels around your body and it cleanses you. It cleanses your cells. So it doesn't have a pump because it's not urgent, but it still needs to happen. So how does it get around the body? It gets around the body by you moving your muscles. So when you contract and relax your muscles and you stretch and you walk and you do all that stuff, then the lymph moves around your body. And so if you don't move enough, you're not cleansing enough and you're moving yourself toward disease, sickness, pain, and suffering.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think also with the movement, what's happening very often that we are lubricating synovial fluids between our joints. And of course, our body is made of joints stuck up on top of each other, starting from the foot where we have 26 bones. So 52 bones, 25% of bones is just in our foot. And I notice in today's world, by wearing shoes, having a sitting lifestyle, we are losing that mobility in the foot, and foot is a foundation. If we have stiff foots, if we don't have eversion, plantar flexion, dorsal flexion, if we don't have this major flexibility, then we're losing that flexibility throughout whole system, throughout whole joints, in our spine, in our pelvis, in our neck. And of course, that with the time can tremendously impact the stiffness in the joints, stiffness in the muscles, in the ligaments, in the tendons. And then we're losing mobility. We cannot anymore turn our head in the car fully to look back or have like a proper movement of our arms. So much people suffering from pains in the body, frozen shoulder, or any sort of pain in the tissue, in the fascia. So such an important part to really lubricate the body, give that body to squeeze that fluids. So we are 70% of water and we're squeezing those fluids, letting these toxins out of the body through that squeeze so that fluids can just get that dynamic flow.
Yeah, absolutely true. Absolutely true. And by the way, look at a brain scan of somebody who's been sitting at their desk for the day compared to the brain scan of somebody who just went for a walk for 20 minutes. One brain scan looks like a major power outage in New York City, and the other brain scan looks like a fireworks display. So we definitely want to make sure that in the day we're getting up and moving our bodies. You're so right. Great. So the next physical need of the body. So we've done air, water, sleep, energy, movement. The next one is sunlight. No, the sun did not suddenly become mysteriously dangerous in 1962. What happened, and this is a very important thing to understand about the sun. So I know a lot of people, I used to work for this guy, and I tell you, he was the most paranoid, like we'd go out on a canoe trip or something, and he'd like button his collars up right to the edge and tighten it all up and wear a big hat and wear gloves. And we're in Canada. I mean, we like the sun in Canada. I mean, I'm not saying it can't burn you, but he was so terrified of the sun. And here's why he's terrified about the sun. Marketing, it's not always honest. I hope we all know that at this point, but it's not. And so some time ago, Some marketing genius figured out that they could sell a lot more sunblock if people were terrified of the sun. Now, I want you to know, I'm not suggesting that it's a good idea to go out and get burnt in the sun. So let's talk about the reality of the sun. Human skin color evolved relative to our position with the sun. So here's what I mean. You will notice that people who their DNA comes from the equatorial regions of the earth have incredibly dark skin. Like I've got some friends from Nigeria and it's like their skin is so black that it's almost got a blue tinge to it. It's like so dark. But then as you move away from the equator, north or south, the skin starts to lighten. It lightens a little more. So by the time you get all the way down to the southern tip of South Africa, the people that were living there when Europeans first arrived were really more of a yellowish color than they were a darker brown or blackish color. And then, of course, if you go north, we know this to be true, that by the time you get to Norway, the people are almost translucent. I'm kidding. I'm just saying that their skin is quite light. So our skin's been doing that to respond to the sun. Now, here's the problem. Does it mean that the sun can be dangerous? Yes. If you are proper, like Nigerian, if you've got super dark skin and you move to Norway, you're going to have a hard time getting enough sunlight through your skin to help you to produce vitamin D. And you're going to have a really high potential of developing something like rickets. So not getting enough sunlight is really dangerous for those people. Wait a second now. If somebody from Norway moves to Nigeria and they go out and stand out in the midday sun, they're going to burn to a crisp. So in that sense, the sun is dangerous. But the sun is the life-giving force that keeps us all alive. And by the way, if the sun did suddenly start to become mysteriously dangerous in 1962, don't you think elephants would be getting skin cancer? But what about the plants? The plants are still under the same sun. Why is it only us? It's only us because of marketers. So it is important that you do not let the sun burn you. That is just stupid. You don't want to get burnt. You don't want peeling skin and blisters. That's an indication you've been burnt, right? But what you do want to do is make sure you're getting enough sunlight in. It helps your body stimulate vitamin D. As I understand it, the body circulates your blood so effectively that every blood cell goes up to the skin layer like every day. Why? It's going up there to get some of the gorgeous sunlight, which acts as an antimicrobial, antibiotic, kind of like antiseptic in a sense, cleansing you. So you've got all kinds of reasons for making sure you're getting good sunlight. It's good for your eyes. You want to make sure you're getting good sunlight. And these days, as we've been going through, like people getting locked down, and think about it, they're being told to stay indoors out of the sun. Indoors, don't move. Indoors, don't get fresh air. I would say to you that you need to get outdoors where you can move, outdoors where you can get some fresh air, and outdoors where you can get some sunlight. And one last point. This is a public service announcement for my friends in London, England, and Seattle, and Vancouver. Now, you might be feeling that this message is unfair because you guys don't have a sun, except for that one Thursday every fourth year. You know, now I know I'm kidding. You do get the sun. But what I want to say to you is this. If you live in one of these places that doesn't get a lot of sunlight, there's two important messages I have for you. One, if it is light outside, that is sunlight, even if there are clouds. Like if it's light outside, that's sunlight. Go out there. Get the light, natural light in your eyes and on your skin. And secondly, you really, truly should take vitamin D vacations where you go somewhere. Like, for example, Greece. If you're living in the UK, Greece is right there. You know, Spain, south of France, and so forth. And so it's really important that we get enough sunlight.
Very important quality. I must say that my mood changed a lot by being just a week here in Greece. I haven't been on the sun for many months. I also live in Poland, so we have kind of not very sunny, but summer is kind of okay. But because of lockdown, I wasn't too much out. And just being mornings, on the beach before very hot sun comes, it's such a blessing for my feelings. I feel much more energized and more happy. I think more happy. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, what's crazy is it's like it's so often how people can understand one half of an equation and not the other. Like, I don't see that the sun makes you happy, except guess what? The absence of sun causes seasonal affective disorder, which causes depression. So of course, getting that natural sunlight is a great mood lifter. There's no question about it. Weird thing is, once somebody's depressed, they just want to be indoors and they just want to stay in and watch Netflix. No, Drag their butt outside and things might start to get better.
All right. What's the seventh need?
Seventh need, non-energy nutrients. So we talked about energy, but now there's other reasons for eating food. So we eat food for energy, but now there are other things. Like, for example, there are, I think it's 13 essential vitamins that humans have to get. There are, I think it's 16 or 17 essential minerals that humans have to get. There are 20 amino acids, 9 of which we have to eat. We can't manufacture them ourselves. And so there are these non-energy nutrients that need to come into our body, and we need to make sure we're getting enough of them. And the problem is most of us are not. Most of us aren't because we're eating poor quality food. And you know what? This is really important. I'm not here to take away your donuts. I'm not here to take away your pizza, your cookies, your ice cream. I'm not here to take those things away. I'm not. I am all about food freedom. I'm about you eating what you want to eat, when you want to eat, as much as you want to eat it. But I'm also about 2 other things: your body getting its needs met and you being able to not eat what you wish you wouldn't and not feel regret. So we got to work on that. Now, here's a really important one of the principles of WildFit is that your health is far more determined by you getting enough of the good stuff than by you eliminating the bad stuff. And so most diets are all focused on this idea of get rid of the bad stuff, eliminate these 7 dangerous foods. And they're not wrong. They're not wrong. The trouble is that many people are malnourished to begin with, and then they go on a diet that says eat less. And so, yeah, okay, they eliminate some of the bad stuff, but if they don't eat more of the good stuff, then they don't handle the non-energy nutrients. And just to make a point of this, just so we can understand a little bit how this works, our bodies manufacture things called proteins. And the way our bodies manufacture proteins is by us eating proteins and breaking them up into their component parts, amino acids, and then taking those amino acids and reassembling them into the proteins we need. So, for example, insulin is a protein. I know most people don't know that, but it's true. It's actually a protein. And you know what else is a protein is antibodies. So if your body, I don't know what would make me think of antibodies these days. I mean, I don't know. It's not like there's been a lot of discussion about viruses and antibodies, but what I'm saying is that when your body encounters a viral pathogen, it wants to create an antibody so that you can then have immunity the next time around. Well, the trouble is if you're not well stocked up on amino acids, then how's your body going to make that? How's your body going to make that antibody? How's it going to manufacture that? It's going to be like, well, I need this one and I can't do it. And so what we want to do is make sure that we're getting enough of the good stuff. One last example about this. I want you to really just take this on board. Let's say we take a person and we feed them perfectly. Like they eat all the right stuff and none of the wrong stuff. They eat all the right stuff and none of the wrong stuff. But we withdraw the vitamin C from their food. So they're eating no junk, no pesticides, no herbicides, no glyphosate of any kind. They're not eating any gross, polyunsaturated fat. They're not messing. Nothing bad is going in. Everything good is going in, but we remove the vitamin C. What will happen? Well, they'll get skin sores, they'll get scurvy, and then they will die having never eaten a Mars bar or drunken a can of Coke. Now, I'm not saying we should have the Mars bar and the Coke, but I'm saying more important than getting rid of the bad stuff is getting enough of the good stuff. And so the next need of the body is to make sure we're getting all of our nutritional needs met.
Very, very nice. Very good. We had also comments here from our audience. So I'd like to also say hello to everybody. Mark commented, wow, what an amazing speaker Eric is. Indeed, he is. And so if you guys have any comments or questions to Eric, please do ask. And in the meantime, we'll go to the last need, and that is?
All right. Well, the last need, physical touch.
Touch. I love this one.
We are social animals. Yeah. Look what happens. You put a baby and separate it from the parents and put it in the incubator, and then it has a failure to thrive problem. Like the baby needs to be touched. It needs to be held, and you're still needing that. Like I remember a long time ago reading about chimpanzees. I'm fascinated by chimpanzees because they're so similar to us in so many ways. And so I was looking at these chimpanzees, and it turns out that what happens with the chimpanzees is that they preen each other. You've probably seen videos where they're like picking at each other and preening and all that kind of stuff. And so the thing is that they're not allowed to do it for members of the community that have a lower social ranking than them. So you only preen the chimpanzee that's equal to or better than you in social ranking. And how is social ranking established? Well, particularly among the male chimpanzees, it's through hunting effectively and that kind of stuff, and defending the tribe and that sort of thing. And so here's the tough part. It means that the lowest ranking members of the chimpanzee clan don't get affection. They don't get touched. And they end up with elevated cortisol levels because physical touch reduces cortisol, and they end up dying. They have the shortest lifespans of any animals. And I hate to say it, but it's a bit of a Darwinian system. It's designed to make sure that the lowest ranking members of the clan don't get to pass on their genetic material, because obviously they're not the right combination. Now, that may sound a little harsh, but that's Mother Nature for you sometimes, right? Now we can learn from that, and we can recognize that physical touch is important to us. And I'll tell you that just in my own very recent personal experience, I got separated here in lockdown. I was on my own for 4 months. Like, I'm telling you, it was just the strangest experience. No hugs, no touching, nothing. And after about the third, fourth month, I started having a problem in one of my knees. And there was an osteopath, a French osteopath that lives here. And I managed to get a hold of her, and she was willing to come over, you know, masks and all this stuff. So she came over. And she laid me down on the bed, and she was doing these treatments. And all of a sudden, she put her hands on me. And I don't know what happened, but I just had this wave of emotion and goosebumps all down my body, and tears started flooding into my eyes. I was starving for affection. And so physical touch is incredibly important. And we get it from holding hands with our friends, from hugging, from play fighting. We get it from cuddling our pets. We get it from playing with our children. It's just important that we get physical touch. And I think this is a very important message in a time when the governments around the world are telling us to distance ourselves from people all the time. And of course that's important, but not everybody. And we should have, let's call them little affection bubbles, where you actually can be with your loved ones and you can feel safe for hugging, kissing, cuddling, play fighting, and other physical activities.
I love touch myself. It's one of the main qualities that I really embrace in life. I'm body worker, massage therapist myself, so I really love that connection. And I notice also how much health touch and that intimacy brings into our lives. Serotonin, oxytocin, dopamine released, and we need touch not just for intimacy but also for healing. You know, through different body works techniques, we can just open up tissue, body, fascia. So such important things. Thank you, Eric. It's an amazing content you brought today. 8 needs of human needs. Where we can find you? I know you have very soon a masterclass. If you could say, it's on 10th September. If you could tell a little bit about your masterclass, what we will learn there. I will also send a link on the chat box for your masterclass. Tell a little bit more about it.
I confess I don't exactly know which masterclass you're talking about, because we have so many of them coming up right now. Do you know the title of it?
I think it was 6. Let me see.
6 Hungers?
6 Hungers. Yeah, that's the masterclass I was
excellent.
talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is an incredibly important masterclass for anybody. Yeah. I'll tell you who should be there. Anybody who has ever eaten food for a reason other than their physical needs. So if anybody's ever eaten food emotionally or for the taste or for enjoyment, then this is a really powerful masterclass, because in all the years that we've been doing WildFit, and we've had hundreds of thousands of people that we've worked with in over 130 countries around the world, here's what we figured out. There are 6 hungers that drive eating, and only one of them is legitimate. The other 5 are kind of like fake hungers. And the gorgeous thing is that when you have a feeling of hunger come up, if you know what it really means, you know another way of dealing with it. And so the 6 hungers is a way to learn to communicate with your body, to understand why it's asking for what it's asking for, when it's asking for it, and to maybe be able to find more productive ways of addressing that. And so it's really valuable around helping people create a more conscious relationship with food. So definitely share the URL with them. It's a super fun masterclass, very powerful.
Great, thank you. We shared it on the screen. We also send it in the emails. So thank you very much for this educational talk. I am really impressed and very grateful to hear you about these 8 needs: oxygen, water, sleep, energy, movement, sunlight, non-energy nutrition, and touch, one of my favorite also. So guys, just please keep on attention to those 8 needs. They will boost your immune system, keep your health at the best possible level, and makes you more energized and happy. Thank you again, Eric, for joining us, giving us your time, and I was honored to host you on Integral Body Institute fan page.
You're
Thank
very
you very
welcome,
much.
and thanks so much for
Have a
having me.
great day. Thank you.